Hello, this is Una here. My name is Una. I'm age 70 and I'm here to talk to you today about adult assessment of autism in women in later life. I was diagnosed 2 years ago at the age of 70 after looking for a certain of 2 years. Why, you might well wonder, at my age, would I want to be assessed? Well, I had three main reasons. First of all, it's personal. It's the ultimate personal question is if you're autistic or not. Secondly, I wanted to do a proper test. It's one thing to test online and a few tests. It's quite another to do to actually manage to get a full, proper gold standard assessment. So I thought if I'm autistic and I fulfill the conditions, I really want to know. And thirdly, for security, to know what my rights were under the Constitution in Ireland here as an Irish citizen living in Ireland right now. So these were my main reasons for going for an assessment at my age. First of all, it's a personal story. I first heard about autism 4 years ago. Someone told me a story about a young woman I knew whose son had just been assessed. I thought I knew nothing about autism at all. So I went and I got a book about it, and lo and behold, on page 18, 19, in a list of symptoms about, social interactions and communication and behaviours and so on, I suddenly got a glimpse of something I recognised in myself. So I went to the back of the book and got online onto the AQ test immediately, the Autism quotient test, devised by the Cambridge, the Autism Research Centre in Cambridge by Professor Baron Cohen, among others. And I carefully took the test, very carefully. But even so, I was right over the line. I scored right away the diagnostic level of 37. So I thought, right, I'll pursue this further. And I joined the Channel 4 TV programme on How Autistic Are You, and took the test, the sample. There were over 700,000 people, I think, who took the test that day. And I was one of the over 80,000 that scored again, diagnostic level, another red flag. So I thought, right, I will look for a proper assessment. But it was actually, I was told it was difficult, expensive, rare, especially at my age, nobody would bother. And so I pursued it. And I was very lucky that Trinity, they had a conference in February last year in 2019. And I applied to go on that, pointing out that even if they were doing research on lots of young people, I actually had no time to waste. I really wanted to know right now. Fortunately, very fortunately, they finally agreed with me, and I got into the room and attended that day where the research results were being shared, both with researchers and people there who were actually autistic. So that's where I first heard the expression. Someone used the phrase autistic community. And I asked the person, I said, is that just a figure of speech? Or, is there an actual organised community anywhere? Is there any coordination about it? And she linked me into that. And for that, I should be ever grateful to her for doing that. And going to a meetup, with people in the autistic community, I found my way to diagnosis in a safe pair of hands, and pulling all my courage together, I presented myself in April 2019 to be assessed. And after a structured interview with my results from RADS and the AQ test, and going for a couple of hours, going through really quite a lot of things, my story, my education, my background, my career, my situation now, I'm retired. Finally, the psychologist waved at me and said, you've crossed the line. You definitely are autistic. There's no doubt about it. And I said, well, right, I would like a report about that because I really want to know my legal rights, and a report that shows that I've reached the forensic test of autism. I would really like that, and that was provided. And I use that as a basis to apply for and get the autism ID card. This is done at a European level by the and provided by the As I Am Autism charity. and my lanyard. That I bring around with me as my sort of security blanket, in a way, my green card, I call it. And they used the research, they read the report as, a guarantee that this wasn't a figment of the imagination, that I was indeed autistic. So, so I found that of the three reasons that I looked for, the personal issue, the test, this was a proper test by a psychologist who recognized autism and knew what it was about, especially in women. Here I got my result. It's not as if I hadn't encountered difficulties before. I had depression in my teens, anxiety in my early 20s, to the point where, I actually had a breakthrough at 24. And a psychiatrist said, there, things have clearly got on your nerves. And another years later said to me, you may be no mother's dream, Una, but you're certainly not crazy. Get out of here. And a kind therapist talked over many issues with me, and I'm very grateful for his help. And a Jungian analyst who helped write the dictionary of Jungian terms of used in Jungian analysis around schizophrenia and so on. She got me to read the book about where this issue is really discussed. Symbols of transformation, where Jung says, these symbols that you see in dreams and so on are actually full of meaning. And that really struck a chord with me, because my special interest, which I have degrees in and stuff, is art history and archaeology. And I'm very interested in heritage and cultural artifacts and so on, as well as publishing and teaching. I actually earned my living as a guide for 10 years, explaining all this stuff to visitors to Ireland. So now I had a report that I could produce, but I also wanted to know exactly, what my rights were. And I found under the Irish Constitution, a copy of which I keep here by the door to protect me. I found that when my parents passed away 21 years ago, it was a moment of great insecurity for me. And so I went and found independent legal advice. And I found that the legislation in place at the time, the Succession Act, was still, the background there was the old Lunacy Act, which is now fortunately being struck out 2 years ago, signed out of law by Michael D. Higgins, our president. And but the new Capacity Act has not yet fully been enacted, and there is still stuff to be worked out there that have made it not a fully completed work. So that's still a work in progress. But the UN Convention on people for protecting people with disabilities has been signed up to by the government. So I feel there's a measure of protection in that. And things like the coercive control legislation has come in. So I feel a much greater level of protection now than I did 21 years ago. So that was quite successful. And the big silver lining for me actually has been the autistic community, because from the time I first encountered them just under 2 years ago, I found lots of people of like mind who are interesting. And this year particularly, I've participated in webinars and so on, and I've just found it absolutely fascinating and helpful. So to me, it's been a whole new world, and a very interesting one. And in fact, Simon Baron-Cohen's new book on the pattern seekers, a new theory of invention, I find very satisfactory, because the way I approached this was, if this autism was a personal story for me, and by being properly tested, then I could find a measure of security now that I lacked before. And it's been a fantastic experience for me. And I would encourage anybody, even at my age, to have that, ontological security and legal security as to my actual position and the level of care and support I actually need, which I had valiantly ignored all my life, saying, no, I'm very much an independent, autonomous person. I don't need any help from anybody. But a psychiatrist once pointed out to me, medicine treats what it can, bracket inference, it can't cure autism, but actually you need to take care. And the kinds of cares and support that are now available are so much better than they were years ago. And I'm very pleased to see on the news today that the special needs schools will be open again next week, because I've seen mothers, on TV really being quite burdened and very much needing support. So I would even say at my age, actually I'm very glad of support and the solidarity of the autistic community, of which I am now a card-carrying member, because life, after all, is a marathon event. And in fact, I did get a marathon medal a number of years ago. I did complete the marathon. It was only a mini marathon, I might add, and walking, and a very funny walk at that. But on the marathon event that is this world, you would need to be properly prepared for and to know and make the most of this gift, because years ago this was only sort of treated as pathology the worst possible way and dismissed. But now it's actually something that's valued and sought out, because the focus and autonomy and choice and diversity and invention and discovery that people on the autism spectrum bring to their activities has a very big upside. It's actually a golden shadow. And it's now being appreciated. I was interested to see in a recent webinar by my old alma mater, UCD, in cooperation with Stanford University, somebody let the cat out of the bag and said, well, the investment bank JP Morgan has found that people on the spectrum are between 45 and 145% more productive than all our other employees on first strike tasks, getting things right first time, which would be, a very big asset, seeing that 85% of people on the spectrum don't find suitable employment because of the difficulties in social interaction and communication, and the behaviours which, other people often find annoying. So, that's a very big plus now, and I'm very glad to have survived to see the day. I got very good care and protection and security. Every day I live, I only realise how protected and secure I was in the way I was brought up. And it turns out that my parents knew from the get-go, and in fact my dad mentioned Asperger's to me a few years before he died. And I dismissed it. I said, oh, Dad, don't be silly, but actually he was right. His diagnosis was correct. And Mum was super protective. So I'm very glad and grateful to those who got me here safe and sound-ish, and the friends and neighbours and allies I have found along the way that have really helped me get here. So I'm very glad to have been assessed, even at my age, and I found it an enormous plus. I'm having the time of my life, and I hope that anyone else that searches for proper assessment delivered by a psychologist at my age was a very big bonus, and I'm having the time of my life, and I would wish everyone well that is in this situation. I'm glad to be contributing today to the Psychological Society of Ireland, the John of Gods, and the Autism Community of Ireland, and also TCD, who opened the door to me to be assessed properly. Thank you very much.